I have a treat for you today. You don't have to listen to me, but that's not the treat. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Tom Randall. He'll be up here in just a moment. Tom's a new friend to me and a new friend to our church. He actually spoke at our church a couple decades ago. Tom was a professional basketball player whose coach led him to Christ. And somewhere when God grabbed his heart, he decided to use basketball as a platform to share who Christ was. And God still has a passionate hold on Tom's heart, and his faith and desire to share Christ with people is just electric. And so you're going to love this today. A couple things about Tom. He and his wife, Karen, were in the Philippines for 43 years. They have 31 kids. One wife, 31 kids. All his kids are adopted from the Philippines. Today, they range in age from 19 to 31. Tom's faith, though, you would think, well, somebody who's that passionate and electric, his faith must have been forged in all good times. And you're going to hear today that there's some moments through Tom's life, even recently in the last several years, that have been so challenging, but it's made him even more passionate about who God is and introducing him to people. And so I want you to do this. Watch this video that will give you a glimpse into his life a little bit. And when that's over, put your hands together and welcome up Dr. Tom Randall, okay? Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Doesn't that look like fun? It was really fun doing it. 35 years I rode that unicycle, and hi, Richard. 35 years. I enjoyed every minute of it. There's nothing like riding around a stadium with 25,000 people with a kid on your shoulders hanging on for life, you know. They stuck their fingers in my ears. They grabbed the hair out of my armpits to hold on. They grabbed under my nose, anything to hang on, you know. And then many of the boys would get so nervous, they just pee right down the back of my, yeah. And that's all right. The people do just what you did. They just laughed, and the show went on. People want to laugh. People want to have some joy. And Filipinos are easy to laugh. It's surprising in a country with so much poverty and trouble and difficulties. You know, every year they have more natural disasters than any country in the world. If it's volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tidal waves, pestilence, disease, every kind of thing you can think of. They coup d'etats, whatever they have, revolutions. But amongst that, you have this tremendous joy that people seem to still hang on to, still looking for hope. And that's why I love the Philippines, because when you share Christ with them, they recognize that as the hope they've been looking for. Susan mentioned it. It didn't matter the wealthy or the poor. It didn't matter. Contentment comes in knowing Christ, and they're so evident with these people. I did that show, and I had so many good stories from it. I got to do it in these folks right here went with me, and we did it in a leper colony, didn't we, Hitchmans? Yeah, and we didn't catch it, did we? And the reason we didn't catch it, because this young lady here had 1,000 wipes that she kept wiping me down with every time I touched a leper, But I've been into prisons, high schools, universities, professional, international games, NBA games, here in the States. In fact, I retired a few years ago. It was time to retire, and I retired doing Game 5 of the Warrior-Cavs game in Cleveland. That was the one year the Warriors didn't win. That was the year the Cavs won. And it was a great night, 30,000 people. And I just really have enjoyed the stories that come from that, though. They make you laugh, One time we were in the Philippines and I was playing on, you saw the courts on there were all different, didn't you? Even one of them at the end, I was just on dirt. But I did a game there one time, and it was a dirt court, and it had wooden backboards at both ends, and it had one wire going from the top of one backboard to the other with 3 lights, one in the middle of the court, one above each basket. And then the huts and the shacks and the little nipa huts were built all the way around the court. So if the ball went out of bounds, it just hit one of the houses. And then you just stood there and threw it back in. They were that close. And people were on top of their houses and around watching the game. So I was riding the big unicycle, and I went in to dunk it. And what I didn't realize, the basket was too high, so the guys couldn't reach it. So we didn't know that the basket was actually a little electrified because the lights had a short. And every time they shot the ball, I noticed the lights blinking. You'd think I would have figured out that there's probably a short, and it's connected to that. And then I realized the baskets weren't wooden backboards, they were metal. And I should have recognized that. So since I was the first one to grab that rim when I went in to dunk it, man, did I get the shock of my life. And it spun me around backwards, and I flew off the bike. I don't fall often off that big bike. It's not helpful. I flew up, and I landed right on the top of this poor guy's nipa hut, went right through his living room ceiling into his living room, and disappeared, nothing but smoke. And I could hear the people outside just screaming and laughing and yelling. I thought it was hilarious. And I wasn't hurt at all. Like the roof kind of broke my fall, and I got up, and I was fine, a little adrenaline rush, And I walked out, and the first thing they saw me, they all clapped, and they said, "Do it again, Joe, do it again." Oh, yeah. So I wanted to give that little taste to you, because I will be a little serious here. There's the good and the bad. And that, so much of the good in the Philippines was entertaining people, playing basketball for them, playing professionally, going to other countries and playing. My wife, we've been married 42 years, and Karen is a school teacher. She taught at the international school in Manila, where I traveled around different parts of the world and played. And we couldn't have our own kids, so we decided at one point we needed to do something more. We had funds, we had ministry funds, we had funds from our earnings from teaching and playing ball, so we thought, let's adopt a few kids, And in the Philippines, there's so many kids that need parents, that their parents have died in a volcanic eruption or in a tidal wave or an earthquake or just some tragedy, even a disease. So we started taking in and adopting and taking care of a couple of kids, and we got carried away. And we have 19 girls, and we have 12 boys. I love it when I speak at prisons. When I first tell everyone I have 31, all the prisoners go, "Man, this guy's something, And then I tell them, "No, I adopted them all." They said, "Oh." But 31 kids, and we love these kids, and just watching them grow. And so we built a home for us, a home for the girls, a home for the boys. We built a gymnasium, we built a medical center, and we built a school. So it was all self-contained, and we had a farm we bought. So the farm, we ran the farm, and that helped us. The kids helped us farm, and we did enough to help with the budget of food and rice and everything like that. And plus, they learned to work and learned about farming and everything like that. So we had a wonderful contained situation there. People from the outside came and taught at the school. Karen set up the curriculum. And then we had medical teams and basketball teams all come over from the from the States to the Philippines. Jimbo, are you here? Jimbo, he came with us. He came not many times, 5 times, Jim, at least. Yeah, at least 5 times, and played basketball with us. And Jim was on this team I'm going to talk about. They had just come, Bill Epling and a group from Westgate, and we played about 45 games in the province. We play sometimes 2, 3, even 4 games in a day. And then we'd come back, and I'd send them all back to the States, and I'd heal all up and get ready for the next team to come out, or I would play in one of the professional leagues when I was younger, obviously. But this time Jim and Bill and them came. They came we had a wonderful celebration at the orphanage with all the kids, celebrated the fruitful ministry we had, and we put the guys in cars and stuff and sent them to Manila to go on the plane and go home. And by the way, with the unicycles, all my kids ride the unicycles. All of them. And we have a family show that we do. Sometimes we go out as a family and do the halftime shows, even at the professional games in the big stadiums or anywhere, just like I would go by myself. And the kids loved it. So we'd done some family shows on that trip. We were all tired, and most of us were a little sick, which comes with missionary work. When you do missions in the Philippines, you go out, you get sick, you come home, you try to get well. So not feeling real great, but about 5:30 in the morning, we had the shock of our life. These guys were gone to the airport. We were kind of happy we could rest and just get recovered. And there was a bunch of commotion outside. I heard them coming up into my house. I thought, what's going on? And nobody ever bothers Dad and Mom's bedroom. That's our private place. They don't bother us. And someone was banging on that door. And Karen says, who would dare bang on our door like that? They know better than that. And I went to the door, and they busted the door in, and here was the NBI, which is kind of like your FBI. And so they're very scary because they're very authoritative, and there is some corruptness in the NBI in the Philippines. So they're scary. You don't want to have the NBI after you. And they busted in, and there must have been 20 men on our campus with 15, 20 men with guns and other type of people, and they were bringing the kids out of their houses and my staff out. We had staff that helped us run the place. And then they had this big camera, and I could see Channel 5. And I've been on TV many times in my career, but this is not the time I wanted to be on camera. And I said, what is going on? And who's in charge here? And this man stepped forward, and I'm in charge. I'm Lieutenant Roy, this and that. And I said, well, what are you doing in my home? He said, well, we're here to talk to you. I said, this feels like an arrest. We can talk outside. You could have invited yourself, and I could have had you for breakfast. This is not talking. You're scaring the life out of my family, my staff, and most of all, my kids. And he said, well, you're going to have to come with us. I said, well, do you have a warrant? He said, we don't need one. We're just talking. He said, sure feels like an arrest. And they grabbed me by the arms, and they took me down, and they brought all the kids out. My wife was there, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I said, you need to tell me what's going on. Am I being arrested? Do you have a warrant? Are you going to read me my rights? Or what are you going to do? What's happening? And then I was assaulted. He just took me down and worked me over and put handcuffs on me. Unfortunately, he did that in front of my kids and my wife, which probably was much, much harder on them than it was on me. And they dragged me into a van. And that was that. Off we went toward Manila. And of course, my wife was standing there with some of the staff, and they herded up all of our 31 kids and put them in a bus and took them away too. So you can imagine how traumatized Karen was. First of all, she doesn't know what's going on, why, and she doesn't know what to do next. Who do you call? What do you do? The authorities that you would trust in just took your family. So she prayed and called a couple of missionary friends and a couple of basketball owners and friends of mine. And soon they got on, communicated, and were trying to find some lawyers so they could get down and find out what was going on, and even find out where they took me. On the way in, it was a bit of a, what you call, physically intimidating trip into the NBI, as they tried to persuade me to give them money to let me go. $250,000, it's all forgotten time. We can take you right back to your camp, and none of this ever happened. And I said, well, I'm pretty beat up. They can't take that back. And I said, besides, I don't pay bribes. It says in the Bible, we become slaves to the briber if we pay a bribe. Don't pay bribes. You know, I never did in the Philippines, and I'm sure it would have been easier on me at times in my life if I had them, but we were blessed by not doing it, and we saw what God did by being faithful, so we were not going to pay any bribes. And so it got rougher, and I got into the NBI, and they put me in solitary confinement, so I couldn't communicate with anybody. Nobody could communicate with me, and I was just praying, what's going on out there? And the Lord gave me a peace. That's all I can tell you. It's a bit of a hopeless, powerless feeling in that situation. And I should let you know, this is not my first time to be arrested. So I had some experience having to trust the Lord in this area. I was in Kuala Lumpur a few years earlier than that, and I had done some baptisms and led some people to Christ in the city in Kuala Lumpur at a professional golfer's home, and we were doing the baptisms in his pool. And I thought, well, this is safe because it's a private setting, even though it's against the law in Malaysia. In that private setting, I thought we'd be okay, you know, nobody would realize it. But 100 people came to witness it, and many started getting in the pool, and then it turned out some of the people that came were from the royal family. And so, of course, the report went back to the palace, and then I knew that. And so I told Stuart, I said, Stuart, I think I'm going to head out real early in the morning back for the Philippines. He said, why? And I said, because it's against the law to do what we do. I didn't want to tell you, but just tell them it was me when they come to the door. And he said, okay. And so I got on the plane, 5:30, flew the first flight to Manila. When I arrived, about 3.5 hours later, the first phone call I got was from Stuart. He said, well, they came at 9 o'clock looking for you. You slipped through their fingers. So I know that feeling that in China and different places I've gone, that this is part of a risk as missionaries. But I've always been able to get through it, and the Lord has always brought me through it. One time in Jakarta, Indonesia, I was playing for a professional team. And we went into immigration, and we were going to play in a tournament there for a week, the Pan Am Cup, they called it. And there were 2 Filipinos in front of me, teammates, as we went through, and we had all our uniforms and jogging suits on, so you could identify us as a team from the Philippines. I was the only American on the team, and so the immigration officer said to the player, who's your American? Oh, the third guy right here, Tom, he's our American. He's a great guy. He's our friend. And the Filipinos are so warm and proud of their friendships. And they said, yes, he's terrific. He said, oh, is he a good shooter? Oh, he's a good shooter, but better than that, he's a great guy, Christian missionary. He led both of us to Christ. We're Christians now. Yeah, and sometimes you hate people to be too excited about your faith, I guess. At that point, I was thinking, oh, I heard them say that. I said, oh, I hope that goes by okay. And as I got up, he said, your name and everything. He said, welcome to Indonesia. Step over here. And I was arrested. And I spent a week, you know, detained while my team went on and played in Indonesia. But the good thing is I didn't get hurt there, beaten, or anything like that. I just got detained. And they didn't want me in there sharing Christ with people. And so anyway, I came back out with my team. Thankfully, the owners and the Filipinos put pressure on them, and they let me come back. So I know that feeling. But this feeling was different. When they arrested me this time, it was much more violent. It was much more serious. And I thought much more dangerous. But I thought they'd clear it up, and whatever they'd figure out that there's nothing I'd done. So I got interrogated by Filipino NBI agents for hours and hours. And then the Americans took a shot. We had Homeland Security and the State Department sent 2 agents, 1 agent each department. And they wanted to interview me. And they said, do you have a lawyer? I said, do I need a lawyer? You're the Americans. I thought you were going to take care of me. I'm an American. They said, well, that's great. If you don't need a lawyer, it'll make it a lot easier. I said, yeah, let's talk. So for hours, they interrogated. Then I realized they weren't interrogating to help me. They were interrogating to try to find something on me. And I said, well, listen, why don't you talk to all of the kids and anything you want. And when you find out there's no complaints against me, make sure you protect me as an American like you're supposed to. And the second day and the third day, solitary, back into interrogation, solitary, back into interrogation. Finally, they said, Tom, everybody's interrogated. There's not one complaint from anyone. I said, am I supposed to be surprised? And they said, well, I said, so can I go home? Can I take my kids? Can we go back home? And they said, yes. You will be out in a few hours, and then we'll come over to check at the orphanage and talk with you and straighten anything up and see the kids. I said, thank you. Could you tell my wife that? That'd be a lot release offer for pressure off of her. And they said, sure. And that's the last I ever saw of the State Department, the U.S. Embassy, or the Homeland Security. I'm sad to say the last administration was not kind to me, that's all I know. Never saw him again. And then they put me in general population the next morning. They booked me and strip searched me, and I went with 40 other guys in a cell. The 40 guys I was in with, the NBI goes after all of the high-level crime like drug dealers, international traffickers, assassins, spies, different things like that. And so there were 10 countries represented in my cell, and they're all bad people. 3 of them were terrorists, 2 had done bombs, and one of them was an Iranian who was a bomb maker for the other 2 who'd set off the bombs from Al-Qaeda. And so I knew I was in over my head. And man, it's always interesting how hard you pray when you know you're really in trouble, isn't it? And I went to the Lord. I said, Lord, I need help. I was scared. I want to say I was hopeless, but I don't think I was completely hopeless, but it didn't look good. And so I was praying, and somehow the Lord wrapped his arms around me and gave me this feeling of security I just can't describe to you. I still went through the anxiety and the fear and everything, but I still had this warm cloak of grace around me that said, I got you. I'm still here with you. I don't think the Lord ever left me. His presence ever left me. And I don't think he leaves any of us, no matter how bad things look. When you know the Lord and love the Lord, he is always with you, even if you don't feel him or think he's there. Unseen, he is there, and his angels are there. So, one of the verses that helped me, because I didn't get any contact, but finally when I went in, they allowed some contact from the outside. And people tried to come and visit me and encourage me and bring money for bond. And they were quickly told that I would not be able to be bonded out because my sentence was 25 to life for the charges they had, numerous amounts of charges, so that you can't be bonded out. And then in the Philippines, you're guilty till proven innocent, not innocent till proven guilty. So they informed my wife, the lawyers, that I'm really sorry. They said, but we're going to do everything we can for Tom, but it's going to take 7 years to get him out. 7 years. The over-under on me living was 2 days in the syndicate betting there. You know, I had betting over-under like they do Vegas here. They bet on everything. 2 days that I would survive. I was the only American. I was 60 years old. I was the oldest guy by a long shot, and the only American, sorry. And it took only 59 minutes before I had my first fight. And I was determined not to get in the fight because I'm 60 years old, you know. But some things cannot be avoided. The one blessing was that my best friend in the Philippines, Toto Luchavez, and he's worked with me for 35 years. He's been my assistant. They arrested him with me. And 2 are stronger than 1, 3 like an unbroken cord, it says in Ecclesiastes. So back to back, we were able to survive. I might tell you also, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I grew up in the ghetto. I was a basketball player. That's why I learned to be a basketball player. I survived the largest riot in American history was in Detroit, 1967. I was 13. My dad taught me to box, to defend myself. And so I'm really thrilled that helped me in prison. Sometimes God has us prepared early for what happens late. We survived, but I was pretty beat up. I was still sick from our trip with Jim and all the guys. And my blood pressure was going through the roof. So I knew I was in trouble. I was real dizzy. And Toto said to me, boss, we got to get you out of here. I said, I know. Do your best. And we asked to go to the hospital. They said, no, there's no medical care in the Philippine prisons, and there's no food. If you want to get food or medical care, you have to get food brought to you by a friend on the outside, but medical care doesn't come. So a lot of people, if they get injured in a fight and stuff, the hygiene in there is so bad that sometimes they die in there because they can't get medical care. So that's part of the deal of surviving. And I saw a couple guys die and get carried out, and it's a pretty grim situation. Discipline, they have people that are in the inmates that are called vice mayors, and they give you the punishment, and everyone gets 2x4s. 2x4s to the kidneys. It's even written on the wall. Any misbehavior, first offense, 2x4s to the kidneys. It keeps everyone in line, and it makes your back hurt. I tell you that. And then it makes you not want to do anything else to get the next discipline. But there's another place called the room, and that's where the guards would discipline you, and that was even worse because you could hear the people go in there, and you could hear them scream and yell when they tortured them. And Toto said to me, whatever happens, Tom, we can't get in the room. He said, especially you, you're too old, you won't survive it. And Filipinos are very direct, you know. And so I said, thanks, Padre. He said, but at least so far we're surviving. But man, I was in bad shape. I needed a doctor, and I needed one bad. Now, that's enough bad news, isn't it? Now let me give you some good news. Then God starts to turn the wheels. The thing they did, the mistake they made, is they let me have my Bible and my glasses. And I don't know, because I was a player, well-known, and a missionary, the guards had some compassion or favor, but they let me have my glasses and my Bible. And man, I could read and read and read and remember God's promises, and it was really encouraging to me. And that gave me so much strength. So when you're in trouble, read God's promises. When you're not in trouble, read God's promises. Memorize them, because they really help, you know. For example, Romans 12:5, I think it's Acts 12:5. Yeah, here it is. Acts 12:5. It says, so Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. You know, a lot of people like to complain about the church all the time in America, but I tell you, I've seen the best out of the church. The first message Karen got to me was that they had opened up a web page online in my name in Cleveland, near where our home church is. And they said they had 47 states represented by churches in those states praying for me in the Philippines to get free. They had 67 countries represented praying for me online to be free. They had 68,000 people individually signing on, praying prayers for me to be released. I can't tell you how that made me feel sitting in my cell, even though I was in there with all those guys. And it was bad, and I'm wondering which one of them is going to attack next. That encouragement from the church. You pray for your missionaries. It's a help. God answers prayer. And to this day, I'll go through an airport, I'll go to speak at a place, and they'll come up and they go, I prayed for you when you were in prison, Tom. State after state, city after city, church after church, country after country I go to, they go, I remember when you were in prison, we prayed for you. What an uplifting thing that is. But still had to deal with the thing at hand, and I was needing a doctor. Now, let me go back again. Remember those 31 kids and all the other kids that we've, of course, loved in the Philippines? Well, there's one special boy. His name was Randall Ramirez. And we met him when he was born. His parents, I led his parents to Christ, and they were very poor. Did you guys go up Pagsanan Falls? No, okay. Pagsanan Falls is a tourist place where you take the boats up, and he was a boatman, and he made just a little bit, and enough barely to get rice on the table. They were just really poor. So I told him, when I led him to Christ, him and his wife, I said, listen, Kiko, what best thing can I do to help you? He said, you could help my kids get in school. And so Karen and I said, okay, we'll put your 3 kids through school like we're putting our others through school. We'll just add them to it. Well, the youngest, the boy, his name was Randall. When he was turning 5, Karen said to me, this kid is special, Tom. I said, hey, they're all special. She goes, no, this one is, his IQ, his intelligence is so high. I said, really? You can tell that at this young age? She says, yeah, we got to really push this kid. He can do things. And so I encouraged him. I said to Randall, listen, Randall, until you get a B, as long as you get all A's, I will pay for your education as long as you can go. His eyes got real big, because education in the Philippines is a privilege. Sometimes only one person, you're lucky in the family, can go to school, and then they get a job or something, and they support the whole family, because it's just something they can't afford for the kids. And so he was so excited. So the 2 girls did fine. They became teachers eventually. Randall, he got all A's. Not only that, you guys remember Michael Jackson? He died, but when he was young, he was a prodigy from when he was 5. He grew up in Detroit, not near from us. We watched him play one time in the front yard with his band. His dad had him out in the front yard practicing. Michael Jackson could sing when he was 5, 6 years old. It was really fun to watch him. This little guy could sing almost like Michael Jackson. No a cappella, no band, nothing. He would just sing any song that was coming out, teach him. And people loved to hear him sing, so we put him in singing contests. He always got first place, provincial champion, barangay captain champion, everything, school champion. And so he could sing and he was smart. It's a good combination. So he went all the way through high school, all A's. And I thought, oh, what have I done? So he comes to me and said, Dad, you said if I got all A's, you'd put me to the university I wanted. I said, pick one. He said, I want to go to University of Philippines. Ooh, that's the biggest school, most expensive school, the best school in the Philippines. Okay, we promise. How much is it going to cost? And he had it all laid out for me. I said, oh, that's not as bad as I thought. He said, well, I get some scholarships because my grades have been so good. I said, oh, that's terrific. Don't you get a B? He said, no, I'm not going to get a B. No Bs. So he got all A's, freshman. Made, what do you call it, when you're the top one in your class and you give the speech? Valedictorian. There, every year you get one in the Philippines, even in grade school and high school. So he is valedictorian every year. All A's, all the way, honor student, all the way through Dean's List through college. Dad, I want to go on further. I said, really? What do you want? He said, I think I want to go to medical school. Oh, stay with me. Medical school. That could be a while. He said, yeah, it's be at least 4 more years. So what's it going to cost? He brought me the thing. I said, oh, man, it's not as bad as I thought. I think I can get that through Karen. She said, no, you promised. We got to do it. He said, I got some scholarships, too, to make it. Okay. Then he says, partway through that, he says, I want to become a surgeon. Oh, stagger me. And some more training. Today, he's 31 years old, going to be 32. He is a surgical oncologist in the Philippines. Now, that's a great story, isn't it? But here's what makes the story so great. Hold your clap for just 1 more minute because you're going to like this. We invested in him when he was born because we won his parents to Christ. And then we helped raise him as well. He came to Christ strong in the faith. He loves to sing for the Lord. He loves to preach for the Lord. And he loves to doctor. Little did he know that when he was 30 years old and he was just doing surgeries in Manila, that I would need him. Because when I got arrested, it was on national TV. Did I tell you that? They came into the room with the televisions and everything. And they had it all over TV, famous basketball player arrested, and here's all these incredible charges and stuff. And he was just coming out of surgery with his other friends, other surgeons, and they'd done a appendix, take someone out. And he looked up, and there I was on TV. And he says, oh, my gosh, that's my dad. And he said, no, that's your dad. He's white. You're brown. It's not your dad. He goes, no, that's my dad. It's my dad. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. And they go, well, he's the basketball player. You know him? He says, yes, but look how sick he is. They said, never mind how sick he is. Look what he's arrested for. He said, he didn't do any of those things. They do this all the time. He's been many times arrested, but he's sick. And they said, yeah, he doesn't look very good. And I was sick. And so he said, oh, I got to find him. I got to go help my dad. He said, do you know where that MBI prison is? And they go, you've been working here 2 years. You don't know where that is? He goes, no. You know, there must be 400 hospitals at least in Manila. There's 10 to 15 million people in Manila. And there's a number of jails and prisons too. And they said, it's right across the street. Now you can clap. That's how God works. Nothing is too big for God. He doesn't care there's 15 million people, 400 hospitals. He doesn't care. He put our jail in that hospital, and God knew it 30 years ago when we first started taking care of him, that I was going to need him 30 years later. And here I am across the street, 600 meters away from where he was operating. He ran across the street, big walls, all the barbed wire and the guards and everything, and he calls, knocks on the door, he wants in. He said, I want to see my dad. Who's your dad? Tom Randall, the basketball player that got arrested. He said, he's not your dad. You're brown and he's white. He goes, go ask him. So they come into my cell. They come in the cell, and I'm not doing too well. I'm laying down on the floor there and trying to stay alive. And they said, Tomas, do you have a son? I said, yeah, I got 18 of them. I'm sorry, I have 12 of them. 12? I said, yeah, which one are you talking about? They said, do you have one named Argel? I said, no, his name is Dr. Argel Ramirez. Why? He's at the front gate. Oh, man, can you let him in? This is surprising. We didn't know you had a brown son. I said, yeah, I got 31 brown kids. And they said, we're going to let him in just because of that. They let him in, and he came to me and he said, oh, Dad, you're dying. Filipinos are very direct. It's not being implied he's being a Filipino and a doctor at the same time. And I said, thanks, son. Do you have any good news for me? He said, I got to get you some medicines. I got to get you to my hospital. It's right across the road. I said, you can ask, but they don't allow it. And he asked, they said, no, there's no hospital. He can't go to hospital. He's a high-level inmate. He's a high-profile inmate. We can't let. Anyway, he ran across the street, got all of these things in a bag, and he came back, medical supplies. 11 at night, they let me out of my cell into the main visitors area, and he put IVs in me and gave me shots and, medicines for infections and everything that I had that he had to treat me for. I mean, in 2 days, I was Superman. I was walking around with an IV, and a Filipino friend had to carry it because it's, they had to hold it up here with the wood. It was hilarious, But I got well, and you know what else? I said, Jill, I got some other guys and friends in here that are dying. He goes, you made friends in here? These people are... I said, Jill, who needs a doctor? He goes, right, okay, who do I treat? I said, you treat all these guys. This guy's got this guy I had a fight with personally, and this is what I did, and I feel bad, fix it. And so our Jill is doctoring all these people. Remember I told you he's a singer? Well, he would doctor for the guys, and then he would pray over them, lay his hands on them, pray for them to get well. Then he would sing for everybody. This is midnight, lockdown, drug dealers, murderers, everything, assassins, Al-Qaeda people, and he's singing. I tell the guys, hey, you guys, and I know lights out. Do you want me to tell him to stop singing? They know he can sing all night. We loved it. Every night he came, middle of the night, treat me and sing for people. The two of us, and with Toto, we won 11 of those inmates came to Christ. 11. He won 2 guards to Christ. And 2 of my lawyers came to Christ. Do you know how hard it is to win a lawyer to Christ? So here's the verse. Oh, gee, I'm running out of time already. My goodness. I did this earlier, too. Listen to this, Philippians 1. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Man, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, the Lord's good. So, my kids were all detained, and they put them in a dozen different establishments all around the Philippines so they could hide them from us. Rape centers, delinquent centers, youth homes, pretty bad places, government centers. And, of course, my kids were petrified, and they didn't know what happened to me, and they told them that I had died. So my kids were sad. But 2 months later, we spent a lot of money with private investigators. They found all of our kids and brought them back home to us. After I got out and they got out, we got together. And you know what they told me? They were so scared, and they were so thrilled that I was alive because they were told that I was dead, and they kept trying to interrogate them to get charges against me. And they said, but Dad, guess what? What? In our 12 places, we led 47 young people to Christ. Dad, they needed us. And I read them this verse. And you know what God said to me? God can take anything and use it for his glory. And now they go back and forth still. The kids go and visit these people, and some of them have gotten out now of those places. They have life in Christ because their dad got arrested. It helped. It helped. And Karen, my gosh, do you think put the wife through something is get arrested? That puts your wife through a lot of hell, 7 years she thought I was going to be in. Can I tell one more story? But I forgot the one. Is it okay? If you have to go, go. I understand, okay? But this one I got to finish. There's a room in the prison, and in that room, that's where they take the prisoners who have misbehaved badly, and then they torture them and they discipline them in there. And you can hear them yelling and screaming, and sometimes they come back and sometimes they don't. But Toto said, Tomas, boss, whatever you do, don't get in the room. I said, hey, I'm the best prisoner in here. I'm feeding people. My son's treating them. We're winning them to Christ. We had lots of favor. The guards love us. Yeah, I'm not going in there. Wouldn't you know it? Tomas, the guard says, you're in the room. And everybody in the prison went, what? What? And even some of the prisoners says, no, boss, no, not Tom. You know why? Because I'm feeding them some of my food. Even the 3 Al-Qaeda guys, the reason they didn't kill me was because I was feeding them. They were waiting until the food stops, then they can kill you. And Toto said, oh, no, boss, I'll go in his place. They said, Toto, sit down. Tomas, you're in the room. I don't want to hear another thing. Get in there. So I walked down there, and I was scared to death. I tell you, I was scared. It's worse than a playoff game. I was just going to the, and I was thinking, oh, Lord, help me to survive this, because I know what's waiting for me. I don't know what's waiting for me. And so what do? You pray. You pray. And I walked in the room, and there's this small guy at a table and a desk, and he was sitting there. He may be 125 pounds, maybe 5'4", and no one else in the room. And you know what I thought? I will kill this guy if he tries to attack me. Is he going to torture me, this little bitty guy? My mind was just going. I said, no, I'm not going to let him do it. And he looked at me and says, I know what you're thinking, Tomas. You're not going to get tortured, and you're not going to get beaten, you're not going to get touched. I said, then what am I doing in here? He says, I'm here to help you. I said, I've heard that from my own countrymen, and they didn't help me. What do you want? He said, I'm a Christian. You know what I said? I want to hear you pray. He said, what? I said, I want to hear you pray. You say you're a Christian. Let me hear you pray. I learned this in other countries, China especially. You can ask someone to pray. You can find out if they're really a Christian or not. You can sense it by the way they speak, by the Spirit. And I said, I want to hear you pray. So he did. You know what? He was a sincere Christian. I gave him a big hug. Help me. Help me. He said, I'm here to help you, son. He said, you have many friends in the Philippines. And then he quoted me this verse. And I know my Bible, so I started crying when he quoted it to me. Let's see, it's in Acts 18. Here's what it says. And the Lord said to Paul when he was in prison one night in a vision, do not be afraid, but go on speaking, and do not be silent, for I am with you, and no one will attack you or harm you or touch you, for I have many in this city who are my people. That's exactly what he said to me. I said, do you, sir, know you just quoted from the book of Acts? He said, yeah, I think I did. I didn't mean to, but I think I did. I said, you did? What do you mean by keep telling everyone? He's Tom, it's known all over the Philippines that you're winning guys to Christ in here. We Christians are all pulling for you. You keep doing what you're doing. You will not be touched. I said, how do you know I won't be touched? I've gotten touched. He goes, not again. He says, I got 6 men around this prison. And everybody knows it. And if anybody touches you, they're going to answer to those 6 men and me. Guards, inmates, anybody. I never got touched again. They treated me like the king of Saudi Arabia, for goodness sake. I had it made. And my last days in there were nothing but winning guys to Christ and sharing Christ. I never met this guy before. I've never met him since. He didn't give me his name. But I know there's people out there that God knows that were going to help me. When God does that, he surrounds you. He surrounds you. And that's what he did for me. I'd like another verse for you real quick. Acts 12:11. Let me see. I'm trying to go through this. Acts 12:11. It says, now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod, from all that the Jewish people were expecting. He saved me. On the 25th day, they came to me. Remember, I'm supposed to be in for 7 years. Our jail had just treated me. It was the middle of the night. They never take anyone out of prison there during the night. They always go out between daylight hours, working hours, 8 to 3. And they said, this guy came in the cell and says, come with me, you're going. I said, where are we going? You're going to be free. I go, how free? I don't know what that means. And I went with them, and I had my pants. The only thing they gave me back was my pants. They took everything, even my belt. So I'd lost 20 pounds in there, so I was going like this. Where are we going? But I had a big smile on my face because we were going out of that prison. And the prisoners were all saying goodbye and hugging me. They were sad I was going. You know why? They got to love me, and they got to love me because I was feeding them. And there was peace, and there were meal tickets going out the gate. And we went out into the darkness. They put me in a dark SUV, and I went, where are we going? And they took me to a little safe house, and there was Karen waiting for me. And I said, what's going on? She said, I think we're free. I think we're going out. I have a ticket for the morning, Delta Airlines. We got on that thing. When those wheels went up out of Manila, and we were in the air, we kissed, hugged, and thanked the Lord again for how he took care of us. Free. Free all the way back to the United States. My encouragement to you is there's great times in life when we're laughing and giggling on the top of a unicycle, and there are sad times in life when we lose friends and we mourn the ones that we love, and there's troubled times in life when we struggle. But if you're in here today and you got a struggle, I'm your guy. I know how it feels. But let me promise you, even if you don't sense or feel God is there, he is there. He knows every tear. He knows every struggle. Do not give up on him. Keep trusting on him. The verses are all there. 8:31, Romans, nothing can separate us from the love of God, not even prison, nothing. I just want to tell you my story because I want to honor God that he loves us that much and he loves you that much. Be encouraged, and let's keep trusting him. Let's pray. You band, you can come back up, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm 6 minutes over. Apologize for being so over, everybody. Lord, thank you for this fellowship of people. But most of all, thank you for Jesus. Oh, for what you have done in our lives. And if there's anyone here who does not know you, may you knock on the door of their heart so strongly they cannot help but open it and let you in. May they come to know you as I do and we do. For life is in you, life eternal. Thank you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. Thanks, everybody.